I was finishing my quarterly financial report when my phone buzzed with a voicemail notification. The name on the screen made my stomach drop dead. Roger's voice cut through the speaker like broken glass when I pressed play. "Christmas is canceled this year. Don't bother coming to the house. Sarah and I have had enough of your disrespectful attitude about our family decisions. Expect a call from my lawyer regarding the money you owe us. We gave you everything, and this is how you repay us. Don't call back." I stared at my phone, 20 years of manipulation crystallizing into this single moment. The old me would have called back immediately, screaming into the phone until my voice went hoarse. The old me would have driven straight to their house in Littleton and pounded on the door until they explained themselves. But I'm 32 now, not 12. I've learned that the loudest person in the room is usually the weakest. Instead, I set my phone down and opened my laptop. My fingers moved across the keyboard with steady precision. Understood. That single word carried more weight than any argument I could have made. I hit send and watched the message status change to delivered. Then I did something my father never expected from his supposedly emotional and impulsive son. I started organizing. My Denver apartment became a war room of financial documents. Bank statements spread across my dining table like battle plans. Tax returns stacked in chronological order. Property deeds arranged by date of acquisition. Every contract, every receipt, every piece of paper that connected me to my family's financial web. As I worked, memories flooded back with crystal clarity. Growing up in suburban Denver, where my father Roger built a successful plumbing supply company from nothing but determination and 17-hour workdays. My mother Sarah managed a portfolio of rental properties with the sharp eye of someone who understood that real estate was the path to generational wealth. I was their golden child once, the kid who brought home straight A's and helped modernize their business operations with spreadsheet analysis and digital accounting systems. When Roger's traditional ledger books gave way to my computerized tracking profits, increased by 38% in the first year alone. But everything changed when my sister Amanda married Tyler during her senior year at Colorado State. Suddenly, the family dynamics shifted like tectonic plates beneath our feet. Amanda became the center of attention, especially after the twins arrived. Emma and Jacob, now 4 years old, represented everything my parents had dreamed of grandchildren who would carry on the family name and legacy. My contributions to the family business transformed from celebrated innovations to expected duties. When I suggested expanding into commercial plumbing supplies, Roger nodded absently and changed the subject to Tyler's photography business. When I streamlined their rental property management, saving them thousands in maintenance costs, Sarah thanked me briefly before launching into stories about the twins' latest achievements. I kept telling myself that family meant sacrifice, that successful people support each other without keeping score, that my parents had invested in my education and deserved loyalty in return. The documents in front of me told a different story, though. Line by line, number by number, the truth emerged like a photograph developing in dark water. As I reached for my phone to check the time, a text message from Amanda appeared on the screen. "Winston, I don't know what happened between you and Mom and Dad, but Tyler heard about Christmas being canceled. Whatever you did, you need to fix this. The twins are asking about Uncle Winston." My hands trembled slightly as I read her message. Amanda genuinely believed that I was the problem, that I had done something to deserve this treatment. The realization hit me like ice water. My parents hadn't just cut me out of Christmas. They had been systematically turning my sister against me for months. I scrolled through my recent conversations with Amanda, searching for clues I had missed. Her responses had grown shorter over time. Less warm, more distant. Instead of calling me directly about family events, she had started relaying information through our parents. The subtle shift had been so gradual that I hadn't noticed the erosion of our relationship. Now I understood why. Someone had been poisoning the well. I set my phone aside and returned to the documents, but my focus had sharpened into laser intensity. This wasn't just about Christmas anymore. This was about discovering exactly how deep the deception ran. The answer was waiting in a folder marked Family Investments that I kept in my bedroom closet. Inside, I found the paperwork that would change everything: copies of checks, signed agreements, and legal documents that painted a very different picture of who owed whom in this family. My grandmother's inheritance, $89,000 that I invested entirely into renovating the family's main rental property on South Broadway. I had every receipt, every contractor agreement, every permit fee. The renovation increased the property value from $140,000 to $320,000. I had never asked for a penny in return, but there was something else. Something I had forgotten in the chaos of family obligations and business growth. My name on the mortgage of my parents' current house. When Roger's credit took a hit from his failed attempt to expand into irrigation supplies, the bank required a co-signer with stable income and excellent credit. I was 27 then, working as a senior financial analyst at a growing firm, earning $93,000 annually. Without my signature and my creditworthiness, my parents would never have qualified for the $400,000 loan on their dream house in the Highlands Ranch area. My name wasn't just on the mortgage. According to the deed, I owned 50% of the property. I had completely forgotten about this detail because my parents handled all the payments. I had signed the papers as a favor, never imagining that my legal ownership stake would matter. Family was family. We supported each other, except they had been planning to sell the house and move to Arizona to be closer to Amanda's growing family. And based on tonight's voicemail, they intended to cut me out of every decision and every dollar. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. This wasn't about Christmas dinner or family disagreements. This was about money, my legal rights, my property. I opened my laptop again and began typing a very different kind of message. Not to my family, but to Marcus Chen, my attorney friend from law school, who specialized in family business disputes. Marcus, I need a consultation first thing Monday morning. Urgent family matter involving property rights and potential fraud. Can you meet at 8? His response came back within minutes. Absolutely. Forward me any relevant documents tonight so I can review them over the weekend. I spent the next 3 hours scanning papers and organizing evidence. As I worked, one question kept echoing in my mind. How long had my parents been planning to betray me? The answer I suspected was about to become very expensive for them. Sunday morning arrived gray and bitter cold, typical for Denver in late December. While most families were decorating trees and wrapping presents, I sat at my kitchen table with 5 years of financial records spread before me like evidence in a courtroom. My coffee grew cold as I traced the paper trail of my family's finances. Every transaction told part of the story, but the complete picture was more devastating than I had imagined. The renovation of the South Broadway rental property had consumed every dollar of my grandmother's inheritance. $89,000 in materials, labor, and permits. I found receipts for everything: hardwood flooring installation, kitchen cabinet replacement, electrical system upgrades, new plumbing fixtures. The work transformed a rundown duplex into a premium rental property that now generated $2,800 monthly. But my investment went far beyond the initial inheritance money. Over 3 years, I had contributed an additional $43,000 of my own savings for ongoing improvements. New appliances when the old ones failed. Roof repairs after the hailstorm 2 springs ago. Fresh paint every 18 months to maintain the property's appeal. I had detailed records of every contribution because my professional training demanded meticulous documentation. Each expense was categorized and justified. What I didn't have was any formal agreement acknowledging my investment or promising repayment. Because it was family. Because we trusted each other. Because I believed that doing the right thing would be recognized and appreciated. The South Broadway property was just the beginning of my financial entanglement. I discovered that Sarah had been using my business credit line to fund Tyler's photography ventures without my knowledge or consent. The statements showed a pattern of charges over the past 18 months: equipment purchases, studio rental fees, marketing expenses, website development costs. The total debt had grown to $47,000. Tyler's business, Capturing Colorado, specialized in wedding and family portrait photography. Based on the credit line charges, he had invested heavily in high-end cameras, professional lighting systems, and drone equipment for aerial shots. The studio he rented in the trendy Rhino district cost $3,000 monthly. I researched his business online and found a polished website showcasing beautiful work. Client testimonials praised his artistic vision and professionalism. His social media presence suggested a thriving enterprise with bookings stretching months into the future. So why was he using my credit instead of business loans or his own resources? The answer became clear when I dug deeper into the financial timeline. Tyler's photography business launched just 6 months after he married Amanda. The timing coincided perfectly with the first charges appearing on my credit line. Someone had provided him with my account information and authorization to use my credit for business expenses. That someone could only be Sarah, who managed the family's various financial accounts and had access to my business information from our shared rental property management. I felt sick as I calculated the total exposure. Between the South Broadway property investment and Tyler's unauthorized credit line usage, my family owed me $179,000. Plus, interest and opportunity costs, the real number approached $200,000. But the most shocking discovery was still ahead. I found a folder on my computer desktop labeled House Paperwork that I had created 3 years ago when helping my parents with the mortgage application. Inside were scanned copies of all the legal documents, including the deed that made me a 50% owner of their property. The house in Highlands Ranch had appreciated significantly since purchase. According to recent comparable sales in the neighborhood, the current market value was approximately $590,000. My 50% ownership stake represented nearly $300,000 in equity. When I cross-referenced this information with conversations I remembered having with my parents over the past few months, a chilling pattern emerged. Roger had mentioned simplifying our finances and reducing our monthly obligations. Sarah had talked about downsizing for retirement and being closer to the grandchildren. They were planning to sell. Without consulting me, without including me in the decision. Despite my legal ownership of half the property, I opened my laptop and began researching real estate transactions in Arizona, specifically in the Scottsdale area, where Amanda and Tyler had moved 8 months ago. The results confirmed my suspicions my parents had been looking at properties near their daughter's family. Retirement communities with golf courses and resort-style amenities. Houses priced between $400,000 and $600,000. The math was simple and brutal. Selling the Denver house would provide enough money to buy property in Arizona and fund a comfortable retirement. My half of the equity would disappear into their new life, while I received nothing. I picked up my phone and scrolled through recent text messages from my mother. Hidden between casual family updates were subtle references to their future plans. We've been thinking about making some changes next year. Roger is tired of Colorado winters. It would be nice to see the twins more often. Never once had they mentioned selling the house. Never once had they acknowledged my ownership stake or asked for my opinion. The betrayal cut deeper than I had expected. This wasn't just about money or property rights. This was about trust, respect, and basic human decency. I had spent years believing that family loyalty was reciprocal, that my sacrifices and investments were building something meaningful for all of us. Instead, I had been funding my own exclusion. My phone rang, interrupting my analysis. Amanda's name appeared on the screen, but I let it go to voicemail. When the notification appeared, I played the message immediately. Winston, I just talked to Mom, and she's really upset about whatever fight you two are having. She said you've been demanding money from them and threatening to cause problems if they don't pay you back. That doesn't sound like you, but I need to know what's going on. The twins keep asking about Christmas at Grandma and Grandpa's house. Please call me back." I stared at the phone in disbelief. My parents had not only planned to cheat me out of hundreds of thousands of dollars, they were actively lying to Amanda, painting me as the villain in a story where I was actually the victim. This was psychological warfare, disguised as family drama. I opened my laptop and began composing an email to Marcus, attaching copies of every relevant document. Bank statements, property deeds, renovation receipts, credit line statements, mortgage paperwork. The evidence was overwhelming and damning. But I also included something else, a detailed timeline of conversations and text messages over the past 6 months. Every comment about simplifying finances and making changes now read like admissions of planned fraud. My parents had underestimated me completely. They assumed that emotional manipulation would keep me silent and compliant. They believed that family guilt would override legal rights and financial common sense. They were wrong. As I finished organizing the evidence, one final document caught my attention, a business card tucked into the mortgage folder. Hamilton and Associates, Family Law and Estate Planning. Below the firm name was a handwritten note in my father's cramped script, consulted about deed transfer options. My blood ran cold. Roger had already spoken to an attorney about removing my name from the property deed. This wasn't a spontaneous decision driven by holiday stress. This was a calculated plan that had been in development for months. I photographed the business card and added it to my growing collection of evidence. Tomorrow morning, Marcus would have everything he needed to understand exactly what my family had been planning, and more importantly, what legal options were available to protect my interests. The war my father had declared with his voicemail was about to begin in earnest. But unlike him, I would be fighting with facts, documents, and legal rights instead of emotional manipulation and false accusations. The difference would prove decisive. Monday morning arrived with the crisp clarity that only comes with Denver's high-altitude winter air. I reached Marcus's law office in Cherry Creek 45 minutes early, carrying a briefcase filled with 5 years of documentation that would either vindicate me completely or expose legal vulnerabilities I hadn't considered. Marcus Chen was the kind of attorney who commanded respect the moment he entered a room. Harvard Law School, followed by 8 years at a prestigious family law firm before starting his own practice specializing in complex family business disputes. We met during graduate school when I was pursuing my MBA, and he was finishing his law degree. Our friendship had survived careers, marriages, divorces, and countless weekend hiking trips in the Rocky Mountains. His office reflected his success, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Denver, leather-bound legal volumes lining custom shelves, and a mahogany conference table where million-dollar settlements had been negotiated. "Winston, you look like someone who hasn't slept in 3 days," Marcus said as his assistant brought coffee and closed the door behind her. "Because I haven't," I replied, opening my briefcase and spreading documents across his table. "I sent you the overview last night, but you need to see everything to understand how deep this goes." Marcus spent the next hour reviewing my evidence with the methodical precision of someone trained to find weakness in seemingly solid legal positions. He examined bank statements line by line, cross-referenced property deeds with mortgage documents, and built a timeline of financial transactions that painted a picture of systematic deception. "This is extraordinary," he finally said, leaning back in his chair. "I've seen plenty of family disputes over money, but the scope of potential fraud here is remarkable." Fraud. The word hit me like cold water. I had been thinking in terms of betrayal and deception, but fraud carried legal implications that could destroy my family permanently. "Sarah's unauthorized use of your business credit line constitutes fraud under Colorado law," Marcus explained. "She obtained credit in your name without consent and used it for purposes that benefited her family members rather than your business interests. The total amount exceeds the felony threshold." He pulled out a yellow legal pad and began writing notes with swift strokes. But that's just the beginning. Your parents' plan to sell the house without consulting you violates your property rights as a 50% owner. Any attempt to transfer the deed without your signature would be illegal. What about this? I handed him the business card I had found with my father's handwriting. Marcus studied the card and shook his head grimly. Hamilton and Associates specializes in what they euphemistically call family asset protection. Essentially, they help people hide or transfer assets to avoid creditors' lawsuits or family obligations. The fact that your father consulted them suggests premeditation. Premeditation for what? For removing you from property ownership without your consent. Hamilton probably advised them about potential strategies, claiming you abandoned your interest, arguing that your name was added as a mistake, or attempting to prove that your contribution was a gift rather than an investment. I felt the blood drain from my face. Can they do that? Not successfully based on your documentation. You have receipts, bank transfers, and a clear paper trail showing your financial contributions. But they could tie this up in court for years while they liquidate assets and move to Arizona. Marcus walked to his window and gazed out at the city skyline. There's something else you need to consider. If you remove your name from the mortgage, the entire loan becomes immediately due. The bank approved a $400,000 mortgage based on your income and creditworthiness. Without you as a guarantor, your parents don't qualify for the current loan terms. What does that mean practically? It means they would have approximately 60 days to pay off the full balance or face foreclosure proceedings. Given their current financial position and your father's credit issues, they couldn't secure replacement financing. The implications hit me like a physical blow. I held the power to destroy my parents' financial security completely. One signature on the right document would trigger a cascade of consequences that would leave them homeless and bankrupt. Marcus, there's something else I discovered last night. I showed him the timeline of text messages and conversations with Amanda. My parents have been lying to my sister, telling her that I'm demanding money from them and threatening the family's security. He reviewed the messages carefully. This adds a defamation element to the potential legal claims. If they're making false statements about you that damage your reputation within the family, you could have grounds for additional action. But Amanda believes them. She thinks I'm the one causing problems. That's precisely why you need to act decisively. Every day you delay gives them more time to solidify their false narrative and potentially hide assets. Marcus returned to his desk and pulled out a thick folder. Before we discuss your options, I need to share something troubling I discovered while researching your father's business background. He opened the folder and revealed a collection of documents I hadn't seen before. Public records show that Roger filed for bankruptcy protection 18 months ago to reorganize debt from his failed irrigation expansion. The filing lists significant gambling losses as a contributing factor to his financial difficulties. Gambling losses. The words came out as a whisper. Online poker, sports betting, casino visits. According to the bankruptcy documents, he lost approximately $60,000 over 12 months. Your mother signed affidavits confirming these losses and acknowledging their impact on family finances. I stared at the documents in shock. My parents had hidden a gambling addiction and bankruptcy filing from me while using my credit and planning to steal my property equity. The level of deception was breathtaking. There's more, Marcus continued. The bankruptcy court required them to liquidate certain assets to pay creditors. They kept the house by claiming it as their primary residence, but they had to surrender 2 rental properties and a significant portion of their business inventory, which means they're in worse financial shape than I realized. Exactly. Your property investments and credit line are probably the only things keeping them solvent. Losing access to your resources would be catastrophic for their financial stability. Marcus closed the folder and looked at me directly. Winston, you need to understand what's really happening here. Your parents aren't just betraying your trust. They're desperately trying to solve their financial problems by stealing from you. The Christmas cancellation and lawyer threats are psychological pressure designed to make you back down from asserting your legal rights. So what do I do? You have several options ranging from negotiated settlement to full-scale legal warfare. But first, you need to secure your position immediately. File a formal notice with the mortgage company requesting removal from the loan. This triggers their review process and prevents your parents from taking any action without your knowledge. He handed me a pre-drafted document. I prepared this over the weekend based on your email. Sign here and I'll file it today. I signed the papers with hands that had stopped trembling. For the first time since Friday night's voicemail, I felt in control of the situation. What happens next? The mortgage company has 30 days to respond, but they'll likely act much faster since your income is critical to the loan qualification. Your parents will receive notification within 48 hours. Their attorney will panic because he'll realize his clients lied to him about your legal position. Marcus smiled grimly. And then your phone will start ringing. By Tuesday afternoon, my carefully orchestrated plan was already in motion. Marcus had filed the mortgage removal notice at 10 that morning, hand-delivering copies to ensure immediate processing. The fraud complaint against Sarah for unauthorized credit line usage went to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation Financial Crimes Division. Tyler's cease and desist letter regarding property collateral was sent via certified mail with signature confirmation required. But the most important action was the package I personally delivered to Amanda's workplace. Amanda worked as a marketing coordinator for a renewable energy startup in Boulder's Pearl Street district. Their office occupied the third floor of a converted warehouse building with exposed brick walls and floor-to-ceiling windows that flooded the space with natural light. I had visited her there twice before for family celebrations, so the receptionist recognized me and waved me toward Amanda's desk. Winston. Amanda looked up from her computer with surprise and obvious tension. What are you doing here? I brought you something. I handed her a manila envelope sealed with tape. Financial documents that show exactly what's been happening in our family for the past 5 years. Her expression shifted from surprise to wariness. Mom told me you've been making demands and threatening them with lawyers. Amanda, I want you to read these papers carefully. Then I want you to call me and tell me if anything Mom and Dad said about me makes sense. I left her office without another word, trusting that documented evidence would speak louder than family politics and emotional manipulation. The envelope contained copies of everything bank statements showing my rental property investments, credit line statements proving Tyler's unauthorized usage, mortgage documents revealing my 50% ownership of my parents' house, and a detailed timeline of financial transactions over 5 years. I also included a handwritten letter explaining how I had discovered my parents' plans to sell the house and move to Arizona without consulting me, despite my legal ownership stake. The letter concluded with a simple question: do these documents match the story Mom and Dad told you about me? By Wednesday morning, my phone rang with Amanda's number. Winston, we need to talk immediately. Her voice carried a tone I hadn't heard in years, fury barely held in check. Can you meet me for lunch at the place on 16th Street where we used to go with Dad? The Italian restaurant near Union Station. Yes, 12:30. I arrived 15 minutes early and claimed a corner booth with privacy from other diners. Amanda appeared exactly on time, carrying the manila envelope and wearing an expression that could have melted steel. I spent 2 hours going through these papers with Tyler last night, she said without preamble. Then I spent another hour on the phone with Mom asking her to explain the differences between what she told me and what your documents show. What did she say? She hung up on me, twice. Amanda opened the envelope and spread selected documents across the table. You invested $89,000 of your inheritance in the South Broadway property, plus another $43,000 over 3 years for improvements. Tyler has charged $47,000 to your business credit line without your permission. You own 50% of Mom and Dad's house because the bank required your income to qualify for the mortgage. That's correct. Mom told me you were demanding they pay you back for gifts you gave to the family. She said you were threatening to sue them if they didn't give you money you had no right to claim. I waited while Amanda processed the magnitude of the lies she had been told. There's more, I said quietly. Your husband has been telling people he owns part of a rental empire and using my properties as collateral for business loans I never approved. Amanda's face went pale. What do you mean? I pulled out additional documents Marcus had obtained through business credit inquiries. Tyler listed the South Broadway property as collateral on 3 separate loan applications for photography equipment. He claimed to have ownership rights that would allow him to secure debt against the property value. That's impossible. Tyler wouldn't do something like that without telling me. Call him right now and ask. Amanda dialed Tyler's number and put the call on speaker. When he answered, she immediately asked about the loan applications. The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds before Tyler admitted the truth. Amanda, your brother is really successful, and we needed better equipment to compete for high-end wedding clients. I thought if I listed his property as additional security, we could get better interest rates on business loans. It's not like I was actually taking anything from him. Tyler using someone else's property as collateral without their permission is fraud. But we're family. I knew Winston would want us to succeed. Amanda ended the call and stared at me with growing horror. How long have Mom and Dad been lying to me? Based on these documents and the timeline of our conversations, at least 8 months. Probably longer. But why? Why would they turn me against you? I leaned forward and spoke carefully. Because they needed you to believe that I was the problem. If you knew the truth about their financial situation and their plans to steal my property equity, you might have objected or warned me. Amanda's hands were shaking now. What financial situation? I showed her the bankruptcy documents Marcus had obtained. Dad has a gambling addiction. He lost $60,000 in online poker and sports betting. They filed for bankruptcy 18 months ago and had to surrender most of their rental properties. The house you grew up in is probably the only significant asset they have left. And they were planning to sell it without telling you, while keeping my half of the equity, $300,000 that legally belongs to me. Amanda put her head in her hands. The twins have been so excited about Christmas at Grandma and Grandpa's house. Emma made decorations for the tree. Jacob has been practicing Christmas songs to sing for everyone. Amanda, I never wanted Christmas to be canceled. I never made any demands or threats. I simply responded to Dad's voicemail with one word understood. What's going to happen now? I explained the legal actions Marcus had initiated and their likely consequences. The mortgage removal notice would force immediate loan repayment unless my parents could qualify for refinancing without my income. The fraud investigation would proceed regardless of family politics. Tyler's unauthorized use of property collateral had created additional legal exposure. But there's still time to resolve this reasonably if Mom and Dad are willing to acknowledge what they've done and make genuine changes. Amanda looked up with red eyes. What kind of changes? Honest communication, respect for legal agreements, accountability for past deceptions, and professional help for Dad's gambling problem. What if they refuse? I met her gaze directly. Then I'll pursue every legal remedy available to protect my rights and recover what they've taken. I didn't create this situation, but I won't be a victim either. Amanda gathered the documents and returned them to the envelope. I need to go home and have a very difficult conversation with Tyler. Then I need to decide whether to confront Mom and Dad myself or wait to see what they do when they receive your legal notices. Whatever you decide, know that I never wanted our family to come apart like this. But I also can't allow them to steal from me and lie about me indefinitely. As Amanda left the restaurant, I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. The truth was finally emerging, but the cost to family relationships would be enormous. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Mortgage company responded faster than expected. Your parents have 15 days to refinance or face foreclosure proceedings. They'll receive notice tomorrow morning. The countdown had begun. Thursday morning brought the first crack in my parents' facade of confidence. Marcus called at 7:15 while I was drinking coffee and reviewing emails before work. Winston, the mortgage company, moved incredibly fast. Your parents received their notice at 9 yesterday evening. Their attorney called my office 4 times before midnight, increasingly desperate with each message. What's he saying? Classic panic responses. First, he demanded I withdraw your removal request, claiming it was filed maliciously. Then he threatened to sue me personally for interfering with family relationships. By the 4th call, he was begging for a meeting to discuss reasonable compromise solutions. I felt a grim satisfaction at hearing about the attorney's desperation. What did you tell him? Nothing. I haven't returned his calls because he doesn't represent you. Any communication needs to go through proper legal channels, and his client needs to acknowledge reality before negotiations can begin. What reality? That they're facing financial devastation unless they can secure replacement financing for a $400,000 mortgage within 15 days. Given Roger's credit history gambling losses and recent bankruptcy filing, no legitimate lender will approve them for that amount. Marcus paused to let the implications sink in. Winston, they can't refinance this loan. The numbers don't work. Your removal from the mortgage essentially triggers an unavoidable foreclosure unless they can pay the full balance immediately. Which they can't do either. Correct. According to the bankruptcy documents, their liquid assets total less than $30,000. They would need to sell the house to pay off the mortgage, but they can't sell without your consent as 50% owner. I set down my coffee cup as the full scope of their predicament became clear. So they're trapped. Completely. They can't refinance, can't sell, and can't pay off the loan. Meanwhile, the South Broadway property you renovated continues generating monthly income that they can't access without acknowledging your investment rights. My phone buzzed with an incoming call, Amanda. Marcus, I need to take this. My sister's calling. Go ahead. I'll be in my office all day when you need to discuss next steps. I switched to Amanda's call. Her voice sounded strained and exhausted. Winston, I confronted Tyler about the loan applications last night. He finally admitted that he's been using your property information for 18 months to secure credit for his business. He's taken out 4 different loans totaling $63,000 by listing your rental property as collateral. $63,000. That's more than Marcus discovered. Tyler said he thought it would be okay because your family and his business success would benefit everyone eventually. He genuinely believed he wasn't doing anything wrong. Amanda, using someone's property as collateral without permission is identity theft and fraud. The intent doesn't matter under the law. I know that now. Tyler's scared because he realized that if you report this to authorities, he could face criminal charges. He wants to meet with you and apologize and figure out how to make this right. I considered the request carefully. Tyler's unauthorized use of my property had created serious legal exposure, but family reconciliation required addressing these issues directly rather than through attorneys alone. I'll meet with Tyler, but only with Marcus present. This needs to be handled legally as well as personally. Thank you. Tyler's relieved that you're willing to discuss solutions instead of just pressing charges immediately. What about Mom and Dad? Have they contacted you since receiving the mortgage notice? Mom called this morning crying and saying that you're trying to destroy the family. She kept asking why you're being so cruel and unreasonable. When I asked her to explain the documents you showed me, she said you had taken them out of context to make them look guilty. Did you believe her? No, the documents speak for themselves. But Winston, she sounded genuinely terrified about losing the house. I felt a stab of sympathy, despite everything my parents had done. Losing their home would be devastating at their age, particularly with limited income and employment prospects. Amanda, I never wanted them to lose the house. I wanted them to include me in decisions about property we legally own together. I wanted honesty about family finances instead of lies and manipulation. What happens if they can't refinance the mortgage? Foreclosure proceedings begin automatically. They would have to move out within 90 days, and their credit would be destroyed permanently. Amanda was quiet for several moments. Is there any way to stop this from happening? Yes, but it requires them to acknowledge what they've done wrong and make genuine changes. They would need to renegotiate our ownership agreement, provide full financial disclosure, and get professional help for Dad's gambling addiction. What if they refuse? Then they face the consequences of their choices. I didn't force them to lie, steal, and manipulate. I just stopped enabling their behavior. After ending the call with Amanda, I spent the rest of the workday thinking about potential resolution scenarios. Part of me wanted to let the legal process continue without interference. My parents had planned to cheat me out of hundreds of thousands of dollars while painting me as the villain to my sister. They deserved whatever consequences resulted from their actions. But another part of me recognized that destroying my family permanently wouldn't repair the relationships I valued or recover the trust that had been broken. By Thursday evening, the situation escalated beyond my control. My phone started ringing constantly with calls from numbers I didn't recognize. When I finally answered one, Roger's voice came through the speaker, desperate and pleading. "Winston, we need to talk immediately. This mortgage situation is getting out of hand, and we need to find a solution before things go too far." "Dad, you canceled Christmas and threatened to have your lawyer call me. Now you want to talk. Son, I was angry and said things I shouldn't have said. But this legal action you've taken is going to hurt all of us, including Amanda and the twins. The only legal action I've taken is removing my name from a mortgage I never should have been responsible for in the first place. But you know we can't qualify for refinancing without your income. You're putting us in an impossible situation." I felt the familiar pattern of manipulation beginning, Roger portraying himself as the victim, while making me responsible for solving problems he had created. "Dad, you put yourself in this situation when you planned to sell the house without consulting me despite my 50% ownership. You made this worse by lying to Amanda about my demanding money and threatening the family. We can work all of that out, but first we need to stop this foreclosure process. Then you need to start by acknowledging what you've actually done wrong and showing genuine willingness to change." The call ended with Roger promising to think about my requirements, but I doubted his sincerity. 40 years of experience had taught me that Roger only admitted fault when faced with consequences he couldn't avoid or manipulate. My phone continued ringing throughout the evening with calls from Sarah, Tyler, and even Amanda urging me to reconsider my position. By Thursday night, I had 17 missed calls from my family members and their attorney. The 48-hour deadline I had set in my mind was approaching rapidly. Soon I would discover whether my family was capable of genuine accountability or if legal warfare was the only way to protect my rights. Either way, the old patterns of manipulation and deception were ending permanently. Friday arrived exactly 48 hours after I had sent my simple response, "Understood." By 7 in the morning, my phone had exploded with activity that bordered on the absurd. 67 missed calls. I counted them twice to make sure the number was correct. Roger, 23 calls. Sarah, 18 calls. Their attorney, 12 calls. Tyler, 9 calls. Amanda, 5 calls. Even 2 numbers I didn't recognize had called multiple times. The voicemails told the story of a family in complete meltdown. Roger's messages progressed through distinct stages of panic. The early calls were angry and demanding. "Winston, you call me back right now. This legal nonsense has gone far enough." By the middle of the night, his tone shifted to desperate pleading. "Son, please pick up the phone. We need to fix this before it destroys everything we've built together." His final message, left at 5:30 in the morning, was barely coherent. "Winston, I know I've made mistakes. I know we've handled this wrong. But please don't let our family fall apart over money. Please." Sarah's voicemails revealed the depth of panic that had consumed my parents. Her first message was defensive and angry. "Winston, your father told me about this ridiculous mortgage situation. You know perfectly well that we've always treated you fairly. This legal retaliation is completely inappropriate." But as the night progressed, her composure cracked completely. "Winston, please call me back. I'm scared about what's going to happen to us. I never meant for things to go this far. We can work this out if you just give us a chance to explain." Her final message was barely audible through tears. "I know we lied to Amanda about some things. I know we should have included you in decisions about the house. I'm sorry. Please don't let them take our home away." Tyler's messages were filled with genuine remorse and growing terror about criminal prosecution. "Winston, Amanda told me you know about the loan applications. I want you to know I never meant to commit fraud. I honestly thought using your property information was okay because we're family. Please let me make this right somehow." But the most revealing messages came from my parents' attorney, Hamilton. His first call was professionally threatening. "Mr. Thompson, this is Attorney Hamilton representing Roger and Sarah Thompson. Your mortgage withdrawal action appears to be retaliatory and potentially actionable. Please contact my office immediately to discuss resolution." His subsequent calls grew increasingly desperate, as he apparently researched my legal position and discovered how strong my documentation was. Mr. Thompson, I've reviewed the property records and financial documents. I believe there may have been some miscommunication about your ownership interests. Perhaps we can schedule a meeting to clarify everyone's legal rights and obligations. His final message revealed complete panic. Mr. Thompson, this is urgent. The mortgage company has accelerated the foreclosure timeline due to credit issues I wasn't previously aware of. My clients have 72 hours to secure replacement financing or face immediate proceedings. Please call me so we can discuss emergency solutions. I listened to every message while drinking coffee and getting ready for work. The progression from anger to desperation to terror was exactly what Marcus had predicted. My family had finally discovered that legal documents and financial reality were stronger than emotional manipulation and false narratives. At 8:15, Marcus called with an update that explained the attorney's panic. Winston, I have news that changes everything. The mortgage company discovered additional problems when they reviewed your parents' account. They're behind on property taxes and homeowners insurance due to cash flow problems. How much do they owe? $17,000 in back taxes and $6,000 in insurance premiums. When combined with the accelerated mortgage balance, they need $490,000 immediately to avoid foreclosure. I nearly choked on my coffee. $490,000! The mortgage company treated these defaults as breach of contract, which triggered immediate acceleration of the full loan amount plus penalties. Your parents probably didn't realize how serious their financial situation had become. Can they possibly raise that amount of money? Not legally. Their only significant asset is the house itself, which they can't sell without your consent. They're completely trapped. Marcus paused before delivering the final blow. There's something else. I ran a more comprehensive background check on Roger after reviewing the bankruptcy documents. He owes an additional $38,000 to online gambling sites and has been threatened with collection action. So the real number is over $500,000. Correct. Winston, your parents are facing complete financial annihilation. They will lose their house, their credit, and probably their remaining assets to creditors. At their age, recovery would be nearly impossible. The magnitude of their desperation began to make sense. This wasn't just about Christmas dinner or family disagreements. This was about financial survival. What are my options now? Legally, you could walk away and let the foreclosure proceed. Your 50% ownership would allow you to purchase the property at auction for significantly less than market value. You would end up owning the entire house for perhaps $250,000. That feels too cruel. Alternatively, you could negotiate a comprehensive settlement that protects your interests while giving your parents a path to avoid complete destruction. But it would require them to acknowledge everything they've done wrong and accept significant changes to family relationships. I spent the rest of the morning considering options while my phone continued ringing non-stop. By lunchtime, I had made my decision about how to proceed. Amanda called during my lunch break, her voice strained with exhaustion. Winston, Mom, and Dad are in complete panic. They spent all night calling lawyers trying to find someone who can help them refinance the mortgage, but no one will take their case. Because they can't qualify for a loan that large with their current income and credit situation. They're talking about selling everything they own to try to raise money, but they don't have enough valuable assets. Mom's been crying for hours, and Dad looks like he aged 10 years overnight. I felt genuine sympathy for their terror, while maintaining clarity about who had created this situation. Amanda, I don't want to see them homeless, but they need to acknowledge what they've done wrong and make real changes before I can consider helping them. What kind of changes? Complete financial disclosure, professional help for Dad's gambling addiction, formal legal agreement about property ownership, public acknowledgement that they lied about me to family members. They're desperate enough to agree to almost anything right now. The question is whether they mean it, or they're just trying to manipulate their way out of consequences again. Amanda was quiet for several moments. Winston, what if I could guarantee that they're sincere? What if I could make sure they follow through on any agreement you make? What do you have in mind? Let me arrange a meeting with everyone present, me, Tyler, Mom, Dad, and your attorney. Full disclosure of the financial situation, complete honesty about what everyone has done wrong, and a clear plan for moving forward that protects everyone's interests. I considered her proposal. Amanda had been victimized by our parents' lies as much as I had been. Her commitment to truth and accountability might provide the foundation for genuine reconciliation. Okay, but the meeting happens at Marcus's office under legal supervision, and everyone comes prepared to sign documents that make any agreement legally binding. I'll set it up for Monday morning. As I ended the call with Amanda, I realized that my simple response of "understood" had accomplished exactly what I intended. My family had finally discovered that their actions had consequences, and that emotional manipulation couldn't override legal rights or financial reality. Whether they were capable of genuine change remained to be seen. But for the first time in years, the conversation would happen on terms of honesty and mutual respect instead of lies and manipulation. The old family dynamics were ending permanently, one way or another. Monday morning arrived with the clarity that comes after a storm has passed. Marcus's conference room was arranged like a peace negotiation, with documents spread across the mahogany table and chairs positioned to encourage honest conversation rather than adversarial positioning. I arrived first carrying additional evidence Marcus had requested over the weekend. Amanda came next, looking determined but nervous. Tyler followed with his head down, clearly dreading the confrontation ahead. My parents entered last, looking older and more fragile than I had ever seen them. Roger's face was gray with exhaustion and stress. Sarah's eyes were red from crying, but she maintained the dignified posture that had characterized her throughout my childhood. Their attorney Hamilton looked like someone who had discovered his clients had been lying to him for months. Marcus opened the meeting with professional detachment. "We're here to address 5 years of financial deception and determine whether resolution is possible without litigation that would destroy this family permanently." He placed copies of all relevant documents in front of each participant. "Before we discuss solutions, everyone needs to acknowledge the facts revealed by these records." Roger spoke first, his voice barely above a whisper. "I admit that I've been gambling online for the past 2 years. I lost money we couldn't afford to lose, and I tried to hide the extent of the problem from everyone, including Sarah." "How much money?" Amanda asked directly. $68,000 over 24 months, Sarah gasped. Even she hadn't known the full scope of Roger's addiction. "I also admit," Roger continued, "that I consulted an attorney about removing Winston from the property deed without his knowledge. I thought if we could simplify the ownership structure, we could sell the house and move to Arizona without complicated legal issues." "Dad," Amanda's voice was steady but firm, "that's not simplifying ownership, that's theft." Roger nodded miserably. "I know that now. I was desperate and scared about our financial situation, and I made terrible decisions." Sarah spoke next, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I authorized Tyler to use Winston's business credit line without asking Winston's permission. I thought it was okay because Tyler is family, and his business success would benefit everyone." "Mom, that's fraud," Amanda said. "You stole from Winston to fund Tyler's business." "I know. I've been telling myself it was helping the family, but I know it was wrong." Tyler's confession was the most difficult to hear. "I used Winston's property information as collateral on 4 business loans totaling $71,000. I told loan officers that I had ownership rights in rental properties when I knew that wasn't true." "Why?" I asked quietly. "Because I was intimidated by your success and felt like I needed to prove I could build something significant too. Using your property credentials made me feel more legitimate as a business owner." Amanda looked around the table at her family members. "And I believed the lies Mom and Dad told me about Winston demanding money and threatening family security. I turned against my own brother because I trusted that my parents were telling me the truth." The silence in the room was heavy with recognition of how deeply trust had been broken. Marcus placed a new document on the table. "Given these admissions, here are Winston's terms for avoiding complete legal warfare. I had spent the weekend developing requirements that would address every aspect of the deception while providing a path forward for family healing. First, Roger enters a residential gambling addiction treatment program within 30 days and participates in ongoing counseling for a minimum of 2 years. Roger nodded immediately. "I've already researched programs. There's one in Colorado Springs that has availability next month. Second, Sarah participates in family therapy focused on enabling behaviors and financial codependency. The goal is learning how to support Roger's recovery without covering for his destructive choices. Sarah agreed quietly. I know I've been making his problem worse by hiding it and making excuses. Third, Tyler pays back the unauthorized credit line debt with interest over 3 years, according to a payment schedule supervised by this law firm. I can do that, Tyler said. My business is actually profitable when I run it honestly. I was just scared to rely on my own resources. Fourth, Amanda and Tyler publicly acknowledged to all family members and friends that Winston never demanded money from our parents or threatened family security. The lies stop immediately and permanently. Amanda nodded firmly. I'll make sure everyone knows the truth about what really happened. Fifth, I restructure the mortgage on my parents' house to make payments affordable while maintaining my 50% ownership stake. But any future decisions about the property require written agreement from both owners. Marcus had prepared new ownership documents that would prevent future deception while keeping my parents in their home. Sixth, I maintain full ownership of the South Broadway rental property in recognition of my investment with rental income, helping offset Tyler's debt payments. That's more than fair, Roger said. You invested your own money in that property and deserved all the income from day one. Finally, Christmas happens at my house this year, and every future family gathering includes honest communication and respect for everyone's boundaries. I looked around the table at my family members. These terms aren't punishment. They're the foundation for rebuilding trust and creating healthy relationships going forward. Roger broke down completely. Winston, I need you to know that I resented your success because it made me feel like a failure as a father. I was supposed to provide for my family, but you ended up being more financially stable and responsible than I was. Dad, your worth isn't determined by money or property ownership. I know that intellectually, but emotionally I felt diminished by needing your help with the mortgage. The gambling started as a way to try to win enough money to pay you back and feel independent again. Sarah reached across the table and touched my hand. I enabled Roger's pride and addiction because I was scared of facing the truth about our financial situation. It was easier to blame you for being demanding than to acknowledge that we had created our own problems. Tyler spoke with genuine remorse. Winston, I used your success as a shortcut because I was afraid my own work wasn't good enough. But building a business based on lies and fraud wasn't actually building anything meaningful. Amanda wiped tears from her eyes. I should have questioned the story Mom and Dad told me about you. I know who you are as a person, and their description never really matched your character. Marcus prepared the final documents while my family processed the emotional weight of complete honesty. Within 2 hours, everyone had signed legally binding agreements that restructured our financial relationships and established clear boundaries for future interactions. The mortgage company agreed to modified payment terms based on the new ownership structure. Tyler's debt repayment plan began immediately. Roger's treatment program was scheduled to start in 3 weeks. As we prepared to leave, Roger approached me privately. Son, I want you to know that what you did with that voicemail response was perfect. You didn't engage with my manipulation or emotional threats. You simply acted with integrity and let the truth speak for itself. Dad, I learned from watching you build your business that actions matter more than words. I just applied that lesson to family relationships. Christmas at my house turned out to be the most honest and meaningful holiday our family had shared in years. Emma and Jacob played with new toys, while the adults had real conversations about feelings, mistakes, and hopes for better relationships. Roger talked openly about his gambling addiction and treatment plan. Sarah discussed the family therapy sessions and what she was learning about healthy versus enabling support. Tyler shared plans for growing his photography business through legitimate marketing and client referrals rather than deceptive financial shortcuts. Amanda and I rebuilt our relationship based on direct communication instead of second-hand information filtered through our parents' perspectives. 6 months later, Tyler made his final payment on the credit line debt. Roger completed residential treatment and continued weekly counseling sessions. Sarah learned to support his recovery without covering for potential relapses. The South Broadway rental property was fully renovated and generating steady income that helped secure everyone's financial stability. Most importantly, our family learned that love requires honesty, respect, and accountability. True loyalty means refusing to enable destructive behaviors even when confrontation feels uncomfortable. I discovered that setting boundaries isn't cruel but necessary for healthy relationships. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for people you love is refuse to participate in their self-destructive patterns. The simple word "understood" had accomplished more than years of arguments, explanations, and emotional appeals ever could have. By refusing to engage with manipulation and responding with calm action instead of reactive emotion, I forced my family to confront the consequences of their choices. My parents learned that financial desperation doesn't justify lying, stealing, or emotional abuse. My sister learned to verify information independently instead of accepting family narratives without question. Tyler learned that authentic success requires honest effort and genuine relationships. As for me, I learned that protecting my rights and dignity didn't require destroying people I cared about. Justice and compassion could coexist when accountability was paired with opportunities for genuine change. The Christmas that was supposed to be canceled became the beginning of the most honest and healthy period in our family's history. And it all started with understanding that sometimes the most powerful response to manipulation is simply understood. Have you ever had to set firm boundaries with family members who were taking advantage of your kindness or resources? How did you find the courage to prioritize your own well-being while still caring about people who had betrayed your trust? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments about balancing family loyalty with personal boundaries. Thank you for listening to this deeply personal story about learning that true love sometimes requires tough choices and uncomfortable conversations. If this resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself while maintaining your values, and share this with anyone who might be struggling with similar family dynamics. Remember that you deserve relationships built on honesty, respect, and mutual accountability. Sometimes protecting yourself is the first step toward healing everyone involved.